Then everyone, I'm leaving. Be careful on the road, Luffy. Is there really no need to change to a bigger boat? You must become a great pirate. Idiot, what pirates? Do you want Luffy to be the shame of the village and shame the village? Ha ha ha, I'll wait for you to come back, Luffy-kun. Hey, big fish, come out. It was already some distance away from the port of the village. The boy in the straw hat, who was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the small fishing boat and paddling, put down the oar in his hand, stood up and stretched, and then putting his hands to his mouth, he gathered into a trumpet and shouted. As the boy's voice fell, ripples suddenly appeared on the originally calm sea surface, and then the ripples spread and set off large waves. Crash, a huge figure appeared in front of the small fishing boat and the straw hat boy. It looks like a crocodile, but the part where the light surfaced has already exceeded 5 meters. The bloody mouth on the hideous head is open, and there are sharp fangs shining with cold light. This is a king of the sea. At this moment, the figure of the straw hat boy was reflected in the terrifying vertical pupil. Looking at the boy in front of him who was wearing a red open-chested vest, blue half-leg pants, and a straw hat with a yellow overall color and red stripes above the brim, the king of the sea slowly swam in front of the boy, and then lowered his head. Brain. After 17 years of rebirth, Luffy, who finally went to sea today, did not waste such a long time. At least the king of the near sea was tamed by Luffy 2 years ago with Conqueror's Haki. Picking up the rope he had prepared from the boat, Luffy tied a knot around the king of the sea's neck, and said, "Take me to the nearest island near Windmill Village." Patting the head of the king of the near sea, Luffy sat down again when the other party whimpered twice and dived into the sea and began to swim. Enjoying the sea breeze that kept blowing at his speed, Luffy couldn't help thinking about the journey that was about to begin. Although he has become Luffy, Luffy still does not care about sailing. After all, he is busy exercising himself every day, including hockey, fruit and the most basic physical exercise, so there is not much time left every day to help take care of Makino's bar. After all, it's not the shameless Luffy of the original book, and you can't eat and drink for free, so that you don't have any extra energy to learn complicated sailing knowledge. In this case, it's better to follow the route of the original book, but with my current strength, there are not so many nonsensical and forcibly arranged actions in the original book, which should save a lot of time. The current Luffy, not to mention anything else, is just because of long-term exercise and sufficient food, his height has exceeded 1.8 meters, and his body is not as thin and monkey-like as in the original work. The muscles, although not protruding like an explosion, are full of streamlined beauty, and there is no scar in the original book under the left eye. That's of course, it's not the original tendon. How can you do that kind of meaningless thing? The scar is not drawn by yourself. In addition to the difference in appearance, Luffy's current strength, at least on top of the strength that Luffy showed before the original Tokishima, is not that he can't be stronger, but that he lacks a real battle with the strong. At least Haki's improvement is closely related to the battle. For the development of fruit, Luffy also has some different directions. The powerful moves before Luffy's 4th gear in the original work all need to be carried out by extending the body. This is because the characteristics of rubber are like this, and this is the main change of Luffy today. That is, to achieve the maximum rebound force with the smallest deformation. Unless you need to stretch a long time in certain specific situations, you will stretch your body every time you attack. No matter how fast you are, you will always be caught by your opponent in an evenly matched situation. As for developing in the conceptual direction like the original Devil-kun bear, Luffy said that at least it can't be done at the moment. It can only be said that maybe this is the limitation of the superhuman devil fruit. Saying goodbye to the king of the offshore sea who sent him here in the small fishing boat that was finally broken due to the extreme speed, after 2 days of sailing, Luffy finally set foot on land again. As soon as he set foot on the island, Luffy unfolded observation haki, and then the whole picture of the small island was presented in Luffy's mind in black and white. This kind of observation haki, which is similar to the white eyes in Hokage, seems to be different from the listening and perception mentioned in the original book. Luffy attributes it to the changes brought about by rebirth. It seems that the time is right. On the opposite side of the island, a ship with a pirate flag is docked on the shore, and there are people in a warehouse-like place on the island. However, what surprised Luffy the most was that he would meet the person he was going to look for here. Looks like this bad habit has not been fixed. Luffy chuckled twice, then walked towards the other side of the island. 5 years ago, little Luffy, Grandpa's back to see you. Garp, who had heard from the villagers that Luffy was here, shouted at the door of the banquet bar. I heard you, stupid old man. The door of the bar opened, and Luffy, who was only 12 years old, came out with a barrel about his height. Glancing at Garp, who was standing at the door and was about to push the door open, Luffy was not at all happy to meet again after a long time. Let Gene, stupid old man, I'm going to move this to the warehouse. Luffy said angrily. Oh, alright. Garp scratched his gray-haired head, subconsciously turning to the side to get out of the way. Before Luffy could cross the door, the other party suddenly punched Luffy's head. Stupid Luffy, who do you call a stupid old man? Do you want Grandpa to know? Just when the fist was about to hit Luffy's head, Luffy took a quick step to the side. Huh. Garp was taken aback when he saw this, but he didn't withdraw his hand, but turned it slightly. Bang. Luffy's head suddenly became a big bag. It hurts, stinky old man. Luffy roared at Garp in dissatisfaction. Although he had already awakened, he could only be beaten if he couldn't keep up. Share. Grandpa, brat. Garp roared in dissatisfaction, but you actually awakened observation Haki. It seems that the old man put you in the deep mountains and forest to train very effectively, so that you can become an excellent sea soldier. Come on. Then he saw a smug smile on his face. He crossed his chest with his left hand and rubbed his chin with his right hand. You give up, stinky old man. I won't be a marine. If I get a bounty then, pray that I'm just a pirate instead of joining the Revolutionary Army. Go to the warehouse next door. Hey, brat. What nonsense are you talking about, and how do you know about the Revolutionary Army? Could it be you lousy who came to you? Suddenly Luffy heard the word, Revolutionary Army. Garp for the first time. I thought about whether it was my son Drago who came back to meet Luffy and said something to Luffy. Father. I still have a father. Luffy, who had just pushed the warehouse door open, stopped and turned to Garp and asked. Although he was reborn as Luffy and knew something about his cheap father, Dorag, Garp didn't know that he was reborn, and he only saw the man once when he was born, and he never saw him again. Now, when I suddenly heard Garp talking about him, I couldn't help but want to know more. Ah, this, that, you're still young. Let's talk about this when you're older, haha. Ha ha ha. Seeing that Luffy was interested in a father he had never met, Garp thought. He knew it wasn't because of Drago. Garp started fighting haha. HMPH, don't talk about it. As for why you don't do marine, when there are no celestial dragons in this world, come and tell me the justice of your marines. Luffy snorted and continued. Also, I heard that for 3 years a group of fishman pirates came from the former East Blue, and they ruled a large part of the island villages of East Blue. The villagers of these ruled villages are worse than death, and as the hometown of your marine hero, there is no marine to inform you. Why don't you think about this matter? When I heard about this, I wanted to tell you when you came next time, but who would have thought you would come back 3 years later? Even when I wanted to contact you, I found out that you even I didn't give me any contact information, and even if I couldn't get in touch with you, why should someone from the Marine branch contact you for so long? But now you appear in front of me, but you don't know about it at all? A series of questions spewed out of 12-year-old Luffy's mouth, and Garp's face was getting darker, veins bursting out of his forehead, and he was obviously on the verge of rage. These goddamn bastards. It's right under my nose. Without doubting what Luffy said, the astonishing aura came from Garp's body, not Conqueror's Haki, but because of his experience in battles, he fought bravely to kill the enemy again and again. The aura of a strong man who fought hard. Even though this aura deliberately avoided Luffy, it still gave Luffy a feeling of being out of breath. I will not do marine. The constraints of the rules and the existence of celestial dragons make me feel bad for world government and marine, but I will solve the injustice I see in my own way. Even if I become a pirate for this, it doesn't matter if there is a bounty. Fearlessly, looking at Garp who was furious at this moment, Luffy said his thoughts word by word. And when this sentence was finished, Luffy seemed to have unraveled some kind of knot in his heart, which was the unease he had always felt as a transmigrator and the arrogance that seemed to be outside the world and out of tune with this world. The astonishing momentum burst out, forming an invisible airwave that swept all around. The surrounding leaves rustled as if being swept by a gust of wind. The whole world seemed to have lost its color at this moment, and the reborn Luffy was finally at this moment. He found and determined his future path, and the power called Conqueror's Haki that originally existed in his body finally awakened. Although it was the first time to awaken Conqueror's Haki, Luffy instinctively controlled the momentum, letting it only erupt between himself and Garp, and did not deter others in the tavern or nearby. The world is human, the effect of extremely high spiritual attributes. Luffy, you kid. Garp stared blankly at the grandson in front of him. Luffy, who was only 12 years old, was still a little kid. At this time, he seemed to have grown up suddenly, and there was a hint of sadness in addition to his happiness. I haven't seen each other for 3 years, but Garp has a feeling that something is wrong. Moreover, the momentum just now was not wrong with Conqueror's Haki. Luffy has awakened this Conqueror's Haki, and let him do marine again. Those rules and regulations may become a hindrance for him to embark on the road of becoming a strong man in the future. This time, Garp had let go of the idea of forcing Luffy to be marine. This time to clear the pirates, I want to go with you, Grandpa. After speaking, Luffy lifted the wine barrel that had just been put on the ground to open the door, ignored Garp, and walked towards the warehouse. Putting down the arrogance of being a traveler, Luffy called out the word grandpa for the first time. It's 12 years old to call me grandpa for the first time. You're such a bad grandson, Luffy. It seems that this vacation has to end early. After the pirates are eliminated, I have to go back to naval headquarters as soon as possible to talk to Sengoku about the current problems with Marine, and the damned rubbish of celestial dragons. Thinking like this, Garp finally just clenched his fist and restrained his momentum. I don't know what Luffy's path will be in the future, but I think it will be very exciting, right? But since I can't become a Marine, if I become a pirate by then, don't blame the old man for being ruthless, Luffy boy. Looking at the blue sky with his hands, Garp's originally clear eyes were now a little hazy, and he couldn't help muttering to himself, but his face that was already a little old was not as serious as usual at this time. Asterisk. Is this Marine's justice? Luffy, who followed Garp to Cocoa West Village, looked at Marine and the Murlocs who were trading treasure, and asked Garp without looking back. Because it was during vacation, Garp did not bring the warship. The place where the two of them are standing is still some distance away from the Murlocs who are trading in Marine. Through the perception of observation hockey, Garp deliberately chose a hidden place so that Garp could confirm the specific situation. Although he just saw some Marine scum and said those words arbitrarily, who made Luffy only 12 years old at this time, in Garp's opinion, it is also a child's vision problem. Although there are indeed some Marines that have such problems, at least the vast majority of Marines still abide by the heart of justice. On the contrary, the vast majority of pirates burn, kill and loot. Even so, do you want to be a pirate too? Garp asked Luffy instead of immediately. Whether I want to be a pirate or not is not up to me. I won't hang the pirate flag until I get a bounty, but if I encounter this kind of thing in the future, I won't because the other party is Marine or the world government or something. I have some scruples. Not shaken by Garp's words, whether the pirate Marine is good or bad, Luffy, as a traveler, has his own conclusion. Since you have said so, as a grandfather, I can't stop my grandson's dream, but since you're not a Marine, then the Marine 6 styles I wanted to teach you can't be taught privately. After a pause, Garp continued. This is the end of the chat. I'll go back to naval headquarters to settle the matter here. This time I'll leave my personal phone number so you can contact me later. After finishing speaking, Garp stopped hiding and walked towards Marine and the Murloc step by step. When the other party finally noticed someone appeared, Garp's forehead had already burst out, and he was on the verge of rage. How? How could it be? Hero. Card. Garp. Colonel Mouse, who had just taken over the treasure chest full of treasures, saw the person coming. Cold sweat suddenly fell from his forehead, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. A mere pirate. You also want to build a paradise country here. Pirate Dragon. When Jinbei released you on bail on the condition that he joined Shichibukai, he didn't let you wait here to do evil. Sure enough, a pirate is a pirate? While speaking, Garp flickered and appeared between the pirate and Marine, wrapping Hockey's fist in the Murloc Dragon's angry eyes, and he didn't have time to react, and he flew out with severe pain. Before hitting the obstacle, the dragon's eyes turned white and fainted. With the rumbling sound of the dragon smashing through the building, Garp clicked his feet and knocked the remaining Murloc pirates to the ground one by one, who were still in the panic and consternation of the boss being knocked into the air. As for you, Colonel Mouse, as Marine, instead of insisting on justice and protecting the civilians, instead, you join forces with the pirates, trap the civilians in dire straits, go back to naval headquarters and go to the military court with me, and then stay in prison for the rest of your life. Prepare to be punished. Ignoring Garp's reprimand, remembering Garp's deliberately slow shaving technique in his mind, Luffy walked towards the short orange-haired girl hiding beside him in observation hockey. The evil dragons have been dealt with. Won't you notify the other villagers? Looking at the girl who was covering her mouth and crying, Luffy walked closer and patted the other side's slightly trembling shoulder. Ooh, yes. The girl grabbed the boy's collar with a sharp cry. Cry, cry, just cry. It's all over. I'm sorry I didn't come here sooner. Luffy didn't care if the girl's muddy clothes and small hands would stain her. Luffy reached out and hugged him in his arms. He put his right hand on the back of the girl's head, and gently patted the other's back, which was still trembling, with his left hand. Why? Woo. If you guys came earlier, Belmere wouldn't be dead. Woo. The girl who was hugged by Luffy finally lost control of her emotions and burst into tears. Garp has already dealt with the Dragon Gang, and is now reprimanding the Marine soldiers who are forced to threaten, and it will take a while to come over. The girl in Luffy's arms had stopped crying, but her slightly trembling shoulders showed that the other party had not completely calmed down. Breaking free from Luffy's arms, the girl let go of the hand gripping Luffy's neckline. Is that old grandpa the Marine hero Garp? Yes, he is Garp. I am his grandson. My name is Monkey D. Luffy, you can call me Luffy, then. What is your name? Although Luffy knew who the other party was at the moment of perception, but still need to ask. Nami. My name is Nami. I just heard you say that you don't want to be a marine. Why is this? Your grandfather is the marine hero. Nami, who had recovered his emotions, did not immediately inform the villagers of what happened here. Instead, he asked about the conversation between Luffy and Garp that he had just heard. Well, how should I put it? There are still many reasons, but the most important thing is that I will go out to sea and travel around the world in the future. Marine will not have so much free time for me to fulfill my dream. Luffy thought for a while, then he spoke. Travel around the world? Nami's eyes lit up slightly, obviously looking forward to Luffy's dream. Of course, after all, Nami's dream in the original book is to travel around the world and draw a map of his own world. Yeah, how about traveling around the world? Do you want to go to sea with me in the future? Luffy asked expectantly. Going to sea to be a pirate? That kind of thing. How could I become a pirate? That's of course, after all, the home was destroyed by the pirates, and the adoptive mother was brutally killed by the pirates. A sense of exclusion. It's probably not wrong to say pirates. After all, there should be a lot of situations like this marine in the future. I won't be merciful at that time. Although I feel that I should belong to the adventurer, celestial dragons of world government, 5 elders don't care about this. In their eyes, as long as they go against them, they are rebels. As this. Is that so? If that's the case, as long as you don't be the kind of villain who burns, kills and loots, then I will agree to your invitation. After listening to Luffy's words, I understood why Luffy might be a pirate. Nami breathed a sigh of relief. After all, he is the grandson of the hero Garp. I just heard their conversation. Even Garp didn't object to Luffy's dream of becoming a pirate when he went out to sea. Luffy would not be the kind of villain who did evil, and he also painted his own world. The dream of the map, if you want to follow him, you should not be wrong. Did you agree? That's great. I thought that the other party wouldn't agree at this time, thinking that I would invite her again when they go to sea later, but I didn't expect to agree now, and Luffy was a little surprised for a while. Well, but if you become a pirate like a dragon, I will disembark without hesitation. Nami looked at the boy who was a head taller in front of him and said, of course, as long as you really only want to ring if you travel the world, then I will also earnestly learn the knowledge of sailing, and then I will set off with you as your navigator. Don't worry, even if I wanted to be like that, I wouldn't have such a chance. Don't forget, my grandfather is a marine hero. Luffy looked at Nami's serious face and said equally seriously, then, say yes. Now, I will go to sea when I am 17 years old, which is 5 years later, and I will come here to find you. Thinking of the agreement between the two at the time, Luffy's steps could not help speeding up a bit. After so many years, I don't know if she still remembers herself. Soon, Luffy came to the only building on the island called Goth, a simple warehouse made of stone. Along the way, relying on observation haki to avoid the pirates occupying the island, although it is easy for Luffy to solve it, at least it is not too late to start after finding Nami. At this time, at the door of the warehouse, a slender figure was sneakily looking around, with bright orange long hair hanging down to his waist, and his cat-like body. After confirming that no one was around, he quickly pried the door lock of the warehouse. She won't be stealing pirates for the past 5 years, right? But I haven't heard any news about the little thief cat. Looking at the other's skilled appearance, Luffy couldn't help but muttered to himself. Without waiting for the other party to enter, Luffy directly showed his figure. Stealing is not a good behavior. Beautiful lady. The voice that suddenly appeared behind him made Nami, who was planning to get into the warehouse, froze in place, and then turned his head quiveringly. Familiar straw hat, familiar face, but compared to the small figure 5 years ago, it can now be described as burly. The delicate and resolute face under the straw hat is now carrying a gentle smile. In an instant, Nami's heart, which had been beating wildly because of the discovery, miraculously calmed down. Luffy? Looking at the other party's initial panic, to the surprise after seeing his own appearance, Luffy was also a little stunned for a while. She is no longer the immature little girl she was 5 years ago. At this time, Nami has orange hair that reaches her waist, bright eyes and white teeth. It shrank sharply again, and it looked quite attractive against the slim-fit long-sleeved shirt with blue stripes. The blue jeans on the lower body wrap the straight and slender legs. The buttocks and simple clothes match, but it shows the amazing charm of the girl. Looking at Nami, who was similar to the image in the original book 2 years later, Luffy was a little dazed for a while. It wasn't the revealing clothes in the original book, but it made Luffy feel amazing. As a reborn Luffy, it is not the original book. The kind of idiot who doesn't know what femininity is. After calming down, Luffy looked away slightly. I didn't expect to meet you just after going out to sea, and I was thinking of going to find you after I got the boat, Nami. With a slight smile, Luffy moved towards the man who was also stunned in front of him. The girl said. It's really you, Luffy. Looking at Luffy, who was smiling slightly, and hearing Luffy's answer, Nami finally came back to his senses, and then, in Luffy's stunned eyes, jumped into Luffy's arms and hugged Luffy. It was only the second time that the two met, but for some reason, there was no sense of strangeness at all. With Wenxiang Nephrite in his arms, Luffy didn't know where to put his hand, so he patted Nami's back lightly. Nami, who hugged Luffy excitedly for a while, was not ashamed. After feeling the pat on the back, he let go of Luffy, and his bright eyes fell on Luffy's face again. 5 years no see. More it makes people feel safe. I was just a skinny kid when we first met. Didn't you also change a lot? The little girl at the time has become a slim beauty now, but I'm fascinated by it. Without fussing, just say whatever comes to mind. Luffy, who is reborn, can nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't expect you to be able to talk. Hearing Luffy's compliment, Nami's heart was overjoyed for no reason, and his mood suddenly became happy. Why are you here? Are you still doing things like stealing pirates' treasure for 5 years? Luffy was still curious about Nami's presence here. Even if it was the original book, it should have been in Orangetown occupied by Buggy. Met Nami's. Hearing Luffy's question, Nami stuck his tongue out first, and then said, of course, I know you're going to sea this year, so I thought about going back to my old business and preparing some money. It seems that I haven't worked in 5 years, so I'm really unfamiliar. You were discovered so easily. He shook his head amusingly. Although you are hiding well, ordinary people really can't find it. But this is also because there is only East Blue here. There are no decent powerhouses. It will be different when it comes to the Grand Line, but then you will not be needed. To do this, you just need to be my navigator, and I will protect you. Although he said that, Luffy also considered the strength of the crew in the future, so before entering the Grand Line, he planned to explain Hoki's training method to those who joined later. Reliable. Then I'll leave my safety to you, Captain. Speaking of which, you're leaving with me now. Before entering the Grand Line, do you want to go back to Cocoa West Village? Suppressing the surprise of the reunion, Luffy looked at Nami, who was scavenging for the treasure in the warehouse, and suddenly asked. The main reason is that Nami's posture of searching for treasure at this time is really tempting, and his hips are particularly upturned because of the bent over, so Luffy doesn't know where to put his eyes for a while, and can only divert his attention by talking. No, I've already greeted Nuokagao and Ajien before I set off. I won't look back until I finish traveling around the world and draw a map of the world. However, as my captain, you don't be killed halfway. My life is entrusted to you. Hearing Luffy's question, Nami's hands kept moving. He glanced back at Luffy, and caught a glimpse of Luffy's eyes that seemed a little embarrassed. Sly smiled and replied. Is that so? Luffy nodded, just about to continue to say something, then as if feeling something, he turned his head and looked into the distance, and said, someone is here. Huh. How did you find it? Nami, who put the last treasure into the cloth bag, and then carried the cloth bag on his back, walked to Luffy's side and looked around, but didn't find the person Luffy was talking about. Well, it is a power called observation Haki, which can sense the breath, number, etc. of people outside the field of vision. When the pirates here are dealt with, I will tell you about it, although here no one in East Blue should be able to hurt you on my hand, but it will be different when it comes to Grand Line or even New World. It is always good to be a master. Luffy explained a little, and then put his eyes on the sight that had already appeared. On a group of people. There is nothing to say to make Nami be careful. If even this group of people can hurt Nami in his own hands, then Luffy doesn't have to go out to sea, and just do the chores for a lifetime in Makino's bar. I can already see the figures of those pirates, but Nami is not afraid. Meimu stares at the figure standing in front of her, and a sense of reassurance emerges from the bottom of her heart. Hey, who are you? Why did you appear on my island? Don't you know that this is the territory of my Iron Club Alvida? The leader was a woman with a mace, but the woman's appearance was real. It was hard to say. The other party didn't seem to see Nami, who was carrying a cloth bag full of treasure behind Luffy, but looked at Luffy angrily and said loudly. Before Luffy could answer, the other party turned to look at a short pink-haired boy beside him, slung the mace on his shoulder and said, Hey, Kirby, tell him, who am I Alvida? The short boy, who was named Trembled, clasped his head in his hands habitually, squatted down, and then stumblingly replied, under the watchful eyes of the sneering pirates, you should be. Of course. Yes. The world's most. Who is this short and ugly old woman? Nami, who stuck his head out from Luffy's back, looked at the strange-looking woman and said, that delicate face and the other party are really like heaven and earth. Ah. Whether it was the woman at the head, the short boy who was being asked, or the other little gangsters around, after hearing Nami's words, All their jaws were long in shock, and they were stunned, in place. Peeved, Luffy, who also heard Nami's words, burst out laughing, and without waiting for the other party's response, he stretched his right foot, rubber whip. The rapidly stretched right leg swept out. Directly after crossing a distance of several tens of meters, he kicked everyone except the squatted pink-haired boy who was still squatting. Ah! The pirates, who didn't react at all, screamed and flew out until they were kicked by Luffy, and by the time they landed again, they had rolled their eyes and fainted. I don't have the habit of listening to the nonsense of the enemy. Although it was only a light kick to Luffy, no one could withstand such a kick with these little scoundrel-like existences. Huh. Ah. Whether it was Nami behind Luffy, or the short, pink-haired teenager not far away, they were surprised by Luffy's sudden extension of unhuman feet. It's the power of devil fruit. I'm a rubber man who ate rubber fruit. My body can stretch and deform like rubber. Luffy explained to the two casually. Devil fruit. Is that the thing called the secret treasure of the sea? Nami, who has been studying navigation and meteorology with Luffy for the past 5 years, has also learned some other things, and devil fruit is one of them. Well, that's right. Devil fruit is roughly divided into 3 types: zone, which can transform into various animals after eating, and has superhuman resilience and strength. Paramecia, which can have various incredible superpowers after eating. Either rubber fruit you eat falls into this category. And Logia, which is the most powerful for ordinary people, has the ability to cause natural disasters and incarnate the corresponding natural elements. Luffy made a little more popular science. I have plans. I'll find you a devil fruit, but after eating devil fruit, it will turn into a landlubber and can't swim, so I want to ask what you mean, Nami. In Luffy's opinion, it is best to find Logia's Union fruit for Nami, which has both self-protection ability and Nami's talent. After pondering for a while, Nami continued. I remember that the cheapest devil fruit seems to cost 100 million Baileys, right? Is it really necessary to spend this money? I don't care if I eat it or not, anyway, there you protect me. The 100 million Baileys are just the most rubbish fruit. Naturally, I won't give you this kind of food. Since you don't disagree, then I know what I know. I will pay attention when I meet the right one. After all, it's the grand line. Even I can't guarantee that I will notice your safety at the first time, so every extra strength you have will give me enough time to react. Since Nami is not against eating devil fruit, Luffy will also pay more attention to the information about related fruits. There is really no information about Union fruit, so he will try his luck with Golden Lion to see if he can get lion fruit. Otherwise, I won't eat it. How good is it to replace such a valuable devil fruit with Bailey? At this time, Nami's eyes became Bailey's shape, and it seemed that he had completely filtered the rest of Luffy's words. Only the information about the value of devil fruit is left. Idiot. Take a long-term view. Are you afraid that you won't be able to get Bailey if you have the ability? Luffy was a little speechless. This girl is really hopeless. She was saved 5 years ago, so you don't need to think about money. Now it's still as rich as the original book. That. Excuse me. The short boy who had been ignored by the two of them suddenly said softly. I left you just to see that you don't belong to their group, but it seems that your character can only be a chorus. Although Luffy has some understanding of the other party through the original book, but the reality still has to be observed through observation. Good to draw conclusions. Really. I'm really sorry. My name is Kirby. I don't know how you two. What do you call them? Seeing that Luffy Nami didn't mean to hurt himself, Kirby finally took a breath, but he was still a little stumped when he spoke. Trip. Your weak face really makes people want to bully you, but my captain is reliable, strong and masculine. Seeing the other side's timid appearance, Nami couldn't help complaining. I'm sorry. He didn't refute at all and apologized directly. This guy was helpless. Luffy shook his head. Just call me Luffy. She's Nami. We are about to go to sea. But you, why are you here, and what are your plans in the future? I was caught by them when I was fishing 2 years ago. I was not killed by them because I knew a little sailing, but I just kept doing errands for them. Kirby explained a little, then scratched his head, looks a little ashamed. Nami looked at the other party with a look of surprise, and then asked speechlessly, don't you resist? Or didn't you find a chance to escape? Impossible. If you resist, you will be killed. I can't run away. Asked by Nami, Kirby stuttered again. Then you're really useless. Although he knew about Kirby when he watched anime in his previous life, Luffy felt speechless when he said it from his own mouth. Then what's your plan next? Kirby. Sitting on the boat, borrowed from Alvida's pirates, Luffy rowed the oars, and confronted Kirby, who was also rowing in the bow. Then asked. I want to be a marine and arrest all the pirates like Alvida. Hearing Luffy's question, Kirby was so excited that he even stopped paddling in his hand. Huh. Be a marine, but can you really be a marine like this? Nami, who was sitting behind Luffy, was lighting up the treasure he had just looted over and over again when he heard Kabi's words. He spoke ruthlessly. I won't give up. I also want to be like Mr. Luffy. That way I can protect other people's existence. Kirby, who was asked by Nami, blushed all of a sudden. Yes, I got it, so can you continue paddling? After a few words, Nami turned her beautiful eyes towards Luffy who was paddling. Remembering how Luffy stood in front of him before, the broad and straight back made Nami feel extra relieved, and he brushed up the slightly messy hair that had been blown by the wind, and a smile evoked from the corner of his mouth. Time passed in this chatter, and before the sun was about to set, the three finally arrived at the destination of the trip, Shields Town. Back on land, Luffy took the cloth bag full of treasures handed over by Nami, and the three of them walked towards the island town under the leadership of Kirby. Although he was enslaved by Alvida for 2 years, Kirby still has an impression of this town, and he should have been here before. Then, let's replace the treasure with Bailey first. It's not very convenient to hold so many treasures. There should be a place to change it in this town. Luffy asked Kirby, weighing the cloth bag in his hand.
Yes, Mr. Luffy, although the town of Shields is not big, there are still special shops for treasure trading. As long as the amount is not particularly large, it can be exchanged. Kirby answered and led the way in front.
Then it's almost time for us to separate. After all, Nami and I will become pirates sooner or later, which is different from Alvida's enslavement of you. If you are too close to us, it will be extremely detrimental to your marine career in the future. Although according to the other party in the original book will become his grandfather's direct subordinate, but Luffy is not sure whether the plot will follow the original book under his influence. Besides, Luffy doesn't agree with what Kirby did in the Summit War in the original novel. It is a capital offense for soldiers to escape from the battlefield. When Marine pursued the pirates with victory, it was obviously Marine, but he stopped Marine Admiral. Continue to chase. It sounds nice to save the wounded, but the soldiers on the front line need to save the wounded? What's more, Akainu is still Admiral. He doesn't obey the orders of his superiors. Instead, he wants to prevent his superiors from expanding the victory.
In the current Luffy's view, it seems that when he is about to kill the enemy, someone suddenly stands up to stop him, and this man still his own companion, then Luffy will consider whether it is correct for him to regard the other party as his companion. Even if Akainu in the original book annoys readers again, soldiers are soldiers, and thieves are thieves. If this anime is called Marine King, maybe the reader's point of view is different. 180 degrees reversed.
This. Mr. Luffy. After listening to Luffy's words, Kirby didn't know what to say for a while. The other party not only saved him, but he was still thinking about his own future. Emotionally, he should thank him, but rationally told himself that the other party was right to do so. Also, we are about to do something with Marine here, and it's for your own good not to have anything to do with us. Because Luffy, who habitually turned on observation hockey after logging in, saw someone who was tied to the execution ground. Figure. It seems that the old man didn't clean up thoroughly at the beginning, so there is still such a marine scum, or is it that it only appeared later? Although he should have saved a lot of time, he still met his swordsman here. I have to say that the inertia of the plot is really big. Marine scum? Luffy, you mean? Hearing Luffy's words, Nami, who had been silent for a while, suddenly spoke up, his eyes full of disgust at the marine scum that Luffy said. Asterisk. Leave it to me over there, Nami, go and exchange the treasure you got from Alvida for Bailey. Whether it's buying a boat or buying supplies, you need to use Bailey, although the future is destined to be it's a pirate, but we didn't go out to sea for looting, of course, the pirates are another matter. After feeling it with observation hockey, Luffy turned back and said to Nami. Don't you need my help? Although he knew that Luffy was strong, but he didn't know how strong he was, Nami asked worriedly. Don't worry, the Marines here can't help me, and maybe we will have another partner. Although the Marines are no threat to themselves, but Nami is different from the past, and if he is hit by a stray bullet hitting is bad, at least until Nami master observation hockey, try to keep her out of the group fight. Although Nami has experienced a lot of battles in the anime, this is reality after all, and the existence of the protagonist's halo is a problem. Luffy doesn't want to gamble on Nami's life safety. Alright then, I'll wait for you at that restaurant over there after I've exchanged the treasure, but don't make me wait too long. Nami didn't insist. Although he was a little worried, Nami chose to trust Luffy. It's been a good decision since he decided to accept Luffy's invitation. Nami glanced at Luffy, then took the cloth bag full of treasure from Luffy's hand, turned and walked towards the direction of the trading venue where Kirby pointed. What about you? Kirby, I wanted to part ways with you here, but since this happened, do you want me to show you what Marine is like in this town? Looking at the slightly curled orange, the long hair gradually faded away, and Luffy turned his head and asked the squat boy who was still at a loss. Kirby was surprised by Luffy's question, and then turned to Luffy with some dancing. Mr. Luffy, you mean? Take me to the marine base here. At present, Kirby is just a chicken with no ties. The chubby boy of the power has absolutely no idea what Luffy means in the words, and he has no idea what marine in this small town is like. Looking at Kirby, who was still panicking in front of him, Luffy couldn't help but be a little speechless. What is Oda's consideration for such a person to let him improve like a hang in the future? That boost speed is like riding a rocket. Not all Marines have a righteous heart, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't become a Marine. Colonel Marine in this small town is one of the most disgusting Marine scum in this part of the world. How about you? Do you want to take a look with me? Then reconfirm your determination to be a Marine? Luffy asked with some wickedness. He was born again, but there was no need to act according to the established character in the original book. I'm going to see it. But, even if the case, I will not give up being a Marine. Although slightly frightened by Luffy's words, Kirby still shouted loudly. My own opinion. Really? Come with me then. I hope you can persist like this. Seeing that the other party seemed to be aroused by his own words, Luffy changed his opinion of the other party a little, at least not completely a coward. Glancing at Kirby, motioning for him to follow, Luffy walked towards the execution square that he perceived in observation haki. Kirby, who was behind him, saw Luffy leave, and immediately trotted to keep up. The slightly short figure stumbled, as if it would fall at any moment. By the time Luffy and Kirby came to the gate of the execution square, Kirby was already out of breath. Seeing Luffy stop, he hurriedly put his hands on his knees and panted heavily. Luffy looked calm, stretched out his left hand to hold the straw hat on his head, and then slammed his right hand forward. His normal arm was stretched like a rubber rope, and his hand became a claw and quickly moved towards the edge of the wall that was not high in front of him. Grab it, then look back at Kirby, who is still panting. Come here and pull me, and I'll take you in. This isn't that bad. Seeing Luffy looking like he wanted to force his way in, Kirby's old habit of recoiled again. Seeing Kirby's appearance, Luffy didn't bother to talk nonsense anymore, and directly stretched his left foot and wrapped it around Kirby's right hand. Accompanied by Kabi's screams, the two jumped over the wall and flew into the execution ground. Boom, boom, two landing sounds sounded. Luffy stood firmly on the execution ground, and Kirby was a little embarrassed. The short and fat figure rolled twice on the ground before it stopped completely, and then hurriedly crawled from the ground. Up. Hey. Who are you two guys? Just when Kirby was just standing firm, a slightly weak but dangerous voice came. Right. I'm sorry. We didn't mean to break in. The sudden voice made Kirby bend over to apologize like a conditioned reflex, and then looked up at the source of the sound. You're Pirate Hunter Roronoa? Zoro. The first time he saw the other party's appearance, Kirby made a fuss again. Obviously he had a certain understanding of the other party's identity. However, the man who was tied to the cross stake did not pay too much attention to the panicked Kirby, but turned his sharp eyes on Luffy, who was standing beside him. Your undisguised ferocious eyes are truly worthy of the name of that monster, Roronoa Zoro. Luffy stared at the figure tied to the cross stake from the moment he landed, and saw the other side staring at him sharply. Himself, that's how he spoke. The familiar green headscarf and cloth kabuto were wrapped around the head and waist respectively. The white short sleeves could not cover the bulging muscles of the other party. Although the hands were tied to the stakes, they could not hide the fierceness of the beast on the other party's body. Breath. Since you know my name, why don't you get out? Or are you my enemy, and you want to take revenge on me now? Zoro didn't know Luffy, who suddenly flew in from outside the wall, but Zoro's secretly vigilant, not to mention the funny chubby boy. The Straw Hat Boy, who had been staring at him since he came in, but put a lot of pressure on Zoro, and intuitively told himself that the other party was strong. Don't be nervous. My name is Luffy. I'm not your enemy. I'm here just to meet you, and then to deal with Marine here. Shrugging, ignoring the vigilance in the other's eyes, Luffy said it indifferently on purpose. Meet me? Deal with Marine? Are you a pirate? Although Luffy didn't show any hostility towards himself, Zoro didn't let his guard down. Yeah, see you, and then confirm whether I want to invite you to be my partner. After all, I am not the original Luffy, but I can't guarantee that this kind of nonsense will make others follow me to death. Invite me to be your partner. Did you do something wrong? I'm a pirate hunter. Since you want to deal with Marine, you should be a pirate, right? Invite me, a pirate hunter, so you don't have to be afraid that I will cut your head off to exchange for it. Bounty? Hearing Luffy's words, Zoro didn't understand Luffy's thoughts for a while. Let's not say that I don't have a bounty yet. Besides, I am quite confident in my own strength. You are no match for me now. This is not Luffy's boasting. He didn't understand hockey, and he didn't understand Zon. Iron, Zoro who hasn't walked out of East Blue can't even break Luffy's hockey. Huh. I really dare to say it, but I don't know if there is any real ability under my hand. Luffy's understatement made Zoro's forehead under the turban jump, although he did feel that the other party was not the one he met before. The kind of scumbag you can deal with casually, but this is not the reason why the other party can look down on you, right? Otherwise, I'll rescue you, and then we fight. I won. How about you get on my boat? Luffy said, staring at Zoro's beast-like eyes. Mr. Luffy, don't, although you are also very strong, but the other party is that pirate hunter. You will be killed. Luffy had just finished speaking, and the place hadn't calmed down from the shock of seeing Zoro. Kirby, who came down, shouted again, completely unaware that he was sneaking into the execution ground. It's arrogant to not mention how I lost it all, but I don't need you to save me. As long as I survive a month, Marine will naturally let me go. Zoro shouted at the gram. Bai was completely disinterested, and his eyes were still fixed on Luffy. Luffy didn't answer Zoro's words immediately, but turned his eyes to the gate of the execution ground. Bang. As the door was pushed open, a group of soldiers in navy uniforms trotted in, and as the last tall figure walked in slowly, the three of Luffy were surrounded. Who are you two who dare to disobey my order and contact the prisoner who is about to be executed privately? Are you with him? Bangkwan head, iron chin, right hand from palm to elbow replaced by an axe. As soon as the burly figure came in, he questioned both Luffy and Kirby. Is this what you said Marine would let you go in the end? Ignoring Marine's question, Luffy turned his head and asked Zoro with a playful face. Cut. Hearing that Marine said that he was a prisoner who was about to be executed, Zoro also understood that he was tricked by the stupid son before. He stuttered, and turned his head away. Damn it, that Marine is not trustworthy. I can't die here, Kuina. Hey, you said you wanted me to be your partner. I can't die here yet, I have a promise to fulfill, so I can agree to your invitation, but my goal is to become the world's #1 swordsman. If it hinders my ambition, I won't spare you easily. Thinking of his agreement with Kuina, Zoro turned his head and said loudly to Luffy. Are you sure I want you to be my partner? Luffy looked at Zoro with a slight smile, and I have to say that this guy Monka really gave a good assist. You guy. Facing Luffy's question, Zoro didn't feel that the other party wanted to reject him, but he always felt a little uncomfortable being led by the nose like this. Hey, you guys, I'm asking you, will one or two disobey me? Colonel Marine, who was ignored, saw Luffy and the two were chatting to himself, and he got angry for a while. The three roared loudly. Soldiers, shoot me all those who don't obey my orders from Monka. With a forceful wave of his right hand with an axe, Monka ordered the Marine soldiers who surrounded Luffy and the others. Ah. No, are you really Marine? Why are you shooting indiscriminately, Mr. Luffy? Think of a way, we're going to be killed. The musket was fired, and Kirby rushed behind Luffy, grabbing Luffy's clothes and shaking it desperately. Asterisk. Go. Colonel, do you really want to? Shoot. Among the Marines who surrounded Luffy and others, someone holding a musket trembled slightly, and asked Monka hesitantly. Huh. Are you also disobeying the orders of the highest rank of men? Monka, who was asked by his soldiers, widened his eyes and glared at the soldiers who were hesitant. In that case, you should also die. Anyone who hesitated just now, commit suicide for me. This. When the soldiers heard Monka's order, they shook their hands and pointed the guns that were aimed at Luffy's group at their heads. Hey. What are you doing? Do you really have to obey such an order? Kirby, who had been pulling Luffy's clothes all the time, couldn't bear to see that the soldiers actually obeyed Monka's order and prepared to commit suicide. Live shouting at those soldiers. Luffy looked at the scene in front of him speechlessly. Although it was the duty of a soldier to convince him to obey orders, no one would stop him from reporting it. He could only say that Marine's internal system was not perfect. Hey, what's going on with you, Marine? Why do I think you are more like a pirate than a pirate? Did you not report it? Or is it that so many people can't stop him alone? For such a thing, Luffy said it's best to let these Marines stand up and resist, without wasting their own strength. This. The Marine soldiers who were hesitating whether to pull the trigger heard Luffy's question and were speechless, but their faces were somewhat indignant. Huh. Why don't you do it? Why? Do you think that after being instigated twice, you can disobey the order of my highest commander? Seeing that his soldiers seemed to be moved by Luffy, Menka was a little angry, and the iron axe in his right hand with a wave, he shouted angrily. That domineering look directly caused the Marine soldiers who were a little moved to lower their heads. Oh. I can't stand you guys, so I won't choose to be a Marine. Luffy shook his head. Since you don't resist, I can only do it myself. Why? You don't think you can deal with me alone, do you? Who do you think I am? I'm the Axe Monka, the greatest person in Shield's town. Seeing that Luffy seemed to have the idea of doing it, Monka he raised the axe in his right hand and pointed at Luffy with the tip of the axe, his chin covered with iron material lifted slightly, as if he didn't take Luffy in his eyes at all. Hey, Luffy chuckled lightly, and then, with his right hand shaking, he punched out. The invisible air solidified slightly under this punch, and with the sound of bang, Menka's arrogant face slammed to one side, and at the same time, the tall body also flew backwards under the drive of his cheeks. Go out. No hockey attachment was used, just rubber fruit stretched out his arm and punched. The power of Luffy's punch has reached the power of the original Luffy's jet pistol after opening the second gear. Monka's tall figure flew out upside down, directly smashing the gate and part of the wall of the execution ground. Until Menka's body fell to the ground with a bang. The side of the slightly vicious face that was hit was swollen high, and the man rolled his eyes and fainted. Amidst the dust, those Marines who were holding guns at him or at Luffy and the others froze in place, and even Kobe, who was originally holding Luffy, had round eyes. Only Zoro, who was tied to a cross stake behind him, opened his eyes wide when Luffy punched, as if he wanted to see Luffy's movements clearly. It's so fast, although I don't know how he knocked that Marine's head over from such a distance, but I didn't even see his punches. Zoro's heart was turbulent at this time, although he had a strong intuition about the opponent, but he wasn't bad either. He thought he could at least be evenly matched with the opponent, but it wasn't until the opponent really shot just now that Zoro realized that he couldn't even keep up with the opponent's speed. How? Do you still think you can beat me now? Seemingly feeling Zoro's shock, Luffy turned his head slightly and said to Zoro, who was still bound. See. Now that it's settled, why don't you untie the rope for me? My knife is still with that bastard Marine's stupid son. Hearing Luffy's words, Zoro's mouth twitched, and he skipped the topic. What about you? Are you going to continue fighting with us? Turning back, Luffy pressed down the straw hat that had been blown away by the airflow with his right hand, and his eyes, which were blocked by the shadow of the brim, looked sharply at those who were still sluggish in place. Marine. Those Marines, who were still stunned, came back to their senses after hearing Luffy's question. They didn't answer Luffy's question, they just dropped their weapons at the same time, and their faces were full of ecstasy. They all jumped up. Great. Finally don't have to be oppressed by Menka anymore. Great. For a time, the clanging sound of the weapons falling was mixed with the cheers of the soldiers, and the originally peaceful execution square was extremely noisy for a while. How is it, Kirby? Do you still plan to become a Marine after seeing Monka like this? Luffy asked Kirby, who was unbinding Zoro, putting down the hand that was originally on the straw hat. At this time, Zoro, who was waiting for Kebi to loosen his bonds, also looked at Kebi. So you want to be a Marine? Then you have to be careful, you will encounter such an officer in the future. Face, and said to Kirby with a smirk at this time. Yes, I still want to be a Marine. I want to catch all pirates like Alvida. I will also work hard to become a Marine general, and then I will clear up Marines like Monka. The panic-stricken chubby boy no longer stuttered at this time, and there seemed to be some different emotions under the calm words. Yeah. I hope you don't become that battle deserter, the post-war virgin, Kirby in the future. Luffy didn't continue to speak, but looked at Zoro, who was unbound. At this time, Zoro was moving his wrist that had not been moved for a few days because he was bound. Well, I need you to help you get the weapon back. No, the boss has already been dealt with by you. If even that stupid son wants you to deal with it, then I don't have the boat on your face. He rejected Luffy without hesitation, and after moving his body, Zoro turned towards him. Go in a certain direction. A big question mark appeared on Luffy's head. Do you think I asked you if you wanted to help because you thought you Zoro couldn't beat Monka's stupid son Bellmaber? Hey. I said I don't need your help, I will get my knife back soon. What I want to say is that the gate is here. Menka was still at the gate. How did you go in the opposite direction? Zoro, who was walking in a dashing manner, froze suddenly, black hashes appeared on his forehead, and then turned his head back angrily. Stop talking. Asterisk. This is Nami, our navigator. This is Zoro, a swordsman, which is the companion I said before that we might have more. By the way, he is a road idiot. Remember to watch it later. Don't let him get away. In a restaurant in Shield's town, Luffy first pointed to Nami to introduce Zoro, and then pointed to Zoro and said to Nami. Hey, the last few sentences are redundant. Zoro, who had been hungry for several days, was feasting on the food on the plate, and he didn't forget to take a sip of wine in the middle. When he heard the second half of Luffy's sentence, his throat seemed to be choked. He quickly grabbed his neck, hammered his chest a few times, and then shouted at Luffy. Really? I remembered it. Nami replied solemnly, his smart eyes full of slyness. Cough. Zoro, who was already smooth, choked again. Then, after we finish this meal, we should leave. Where is the next stop? With a piece of meat in his mouth, Luffy turned to Nami and asked about the itinerary. After all, Luffy doesn't know navigation at all, so he can leave all the navigation routes to Nami. For Kirby, Luffy had to see if the other person was like the original. Now, for Nami, Luffy really believed that the other person had the amazing sailing skills in the original book. Maybe this is a double standard. Speaking of Kebi, after finishing off Monka, Kebi made a request to become a Marine with the Lieutenant Junior grade among the Marine soldiers, and the Marine Lieutenant Junior grade agreed directly. This is also normal. After all, Luffy doesn't keep shouting that I want to become the Pirate King all day long, and no one answers that he is a pirate when he asks. Although he solved Monka, it is still a favor for those Marines. In addition to a disaster, the other party will not clean up himself as a pirate for no reason, and Kobe also logically made a request to join Marine and got permission. Since I'm going to the Grand Line, the nautical chart of the Grand Line is a must. After all, I haven't been to the Grand Line. I heard that the pirate, Clown Buggy, has a nautical chart of the Grand Line, and he seems to be in Orangetown recently. Then let's go to Orangetown. Nami stroked his fair chin and said thoughtfully for a while. Nami seems to have a good understanding of the recent situation of East Blue, so he must have done his homework in order to sail with him. Luffy was a little moved. The other party not only agreed to the original invitation, but also made various preparations to go to sea with him, which strengthened Luffy's determination to protect Nami. Clown Buggy. I remember seeing his bounty before. It seems that there are as many as 15 million Baileys. In East Blue, they should belong to the relatively strong group. Hearing Nami say Buggy, he was immersed in eating. Zoro raised his head slightly and said, but it shouldn't be your opponent. Seemingly remembering the strength that Luffy showed before, Zoro added another sentence, and continued to eat the meal he had not finished eating. Luffy, are you okay? Nami looked at Luffy worriedly when Zoro said that Buggy's reward was 15 million Bailey. Although Zoro said that Buggy was not Luffy's opponent, Nami was still uneasy. After all, the reward was 15 million Bailey, and the original dragon also offered a reward of 20 million Bailey. Nami had seen the strength of the evil dragon with his own eyes. Although he was knocked out by Luffy's grandfather in the end, after all, Luffy's grandfather was Marine. Hero, Nami doesn't find it strange to be able to do this, but Luffy, it's not that Nami doesn't believe Luffy, it's that Nami has never seen Luffy take a shot. Although Alvida was knocked out by Luffy before, the opponent seems to have only 500 won Bailey offered a bounty, so Nami didn't know the extent of Luffy's strength. Don't worry, Nami, Buggy is not a powerful pirate. Although the other party has an extraordinary background, his own strength is not that great. Luffy said in a flat tone, as if he was talking about a trivial matter. Although Luffy doesn't know whether Buggy is really weak or is hiding his strength, Luffy is not worried. Even if the opponent really hides his strength, with Luffy's current strength, he will not underestimate the opponent anyway, unless his hidden strength reaches Shanks' level, but that shouldn't be possible, right? If it really gets to that point, why do you need to hide your strength? Seeing Luffy's indifferent expression, as if he was comforting himself, Nami let go of his worries and breathed a sigh of relief. If that's the case, then go to Orangetown, which happens to be not far from the town of Shields. Even if not for the nautical chart, we also have to pass through Orangetown, and this is just the right way. I haven't eaten for a few days, I'm finally full now. After taking his last sip of wine, Zoro stretched his arms wide. But why do you eat more than me? Huh? Zoro was a little speechless when he saw the plates piled up in front of Luffy. He was obviously starving. Okay. What happened to this person? The more you eat, the stronger you will be. Luffy answered as a matter of course. Although he is no longer the original Luffy, Luffy's food intake has not changed at all. It is still outrageous. Could it be a side effect of consuming rubber fruit? Or is the food intake of D's family all the same? Thinking of his grandfather Garp in this lifetime, Luffy couldn't help but guess. Makes sense. Zoro touched his chin when he heard Luffy's answer, seemingly confirming Luffy's statement. At this time, I finally noticed that Nami, who was full of plates in front of Luffy, finally couldn't help roaring. There's a fart truth, there must be a limit to what you can eat, right? Seeing that Zoro didn't continue to refute Luffy, he admitted Luffy's statement. It was the first time that Nami was worried about his trip to the sea. Luffy could eat so much. Wouldn't Luffy eat up all the supplies during the voyage? Looking at Nami's familiar and unfamiliar gesture, Luffy was a little dazed for a while, and he seemed to be back when he was reading comics, but the difference was that now he was no longer a spectator, but a person in the painting. But Luffy didn't joke either. His body's absorption of food can be said to be quite outrageous, and it seems that he has really reached the point of returning his life, lol. Okay. Now that we've had enough to eat and drink, then it's time for us to set off. The trip has just begun, so it's not suitable to stay somewhere for a long time. After stretching, Luffy stood up and looked at the mooring in the distance. The boat on the shore said to Nami and Zoro. Oh, Nami and Zoro agreed, standing up at the same time with a slight excitement. In this way, two strong and slender figures set foot on the journey again. Asterisk. Is this the Orange Town? It feels so desolate, and there's not even a shadow of a person. Shouldn't they all be killed by the clown Buggy? The three figures stood not far from Orange Town, looking at the deserted street not far away, and a row of buildings that had been turned into ruins. The beautiful figure with long orange curly hair sighed with emotion, while speaking, that the slender figure also shivered slightly. No, there is no smell of blood wafting out of the town. The strong green figure replied. The sharp eyes and the three knives attached to his waist exuded a beast-like aura everywhere. What do you think about? Go in and see what's going on. Luffy put on his straw hat and said to Nami and Zoro, walking towards the town at the same time. Seeing this, Nami and Zoro followed Luffy one by one. The three of them were walking on the streets of Orange Town, looking around. The surroundings were deserted, and they couldn't even see a single person. If the buildings in this town were intact except for the row of ruins, Luffy and the others would have thought that this place was somewhere. Abandoned town. Luffy unfolded observation haki, red light flashed in his eyes, and then, the whole situation of Orange Town appeared in Luffy's mind. The Buggy pirates are on the roof of the bar in front. Let's go straight over. Pointing to a bar not far away, Luffy turned to Nami and Zoro. Is that the observation haki you mentioned again? Is it really that convenient? Although I've heard Luffy talk about the observation haki, the effect is too good. Every time I arrive at the destination, Luffy can define the target of this trip directly. Nami said that this ability is too convenient. Observation haki? What is that? Zoro on the side asked curiously when he heard Nami's words and then contacted Luffy's actions. Luffy, who was walking in front, paused for a moment, then moved on, and explained in his mouth. The so-called observation haki is a power that can strongly sense the opponent's sound. Once this power is awakened and enhanced, it can take the position and number of enemies out of sight, and the actions that the opponent will take in the next moment, and I rely on this power to perceive the location of Buggy's group. I originally planned to wait until Barati, the restaurant on the sea, to explain it to them together, but since Zoro asked, let's explain a little bit. With Zoro's talent, maybe after learning about it, he will be able to master soon. I still have this ability, so can I awaken this power? Zoro was obviously very interested in this kind of power that could make him stronger. Observation haki is an innate ability of living beings. It exists like an instinct, but most people are unaware of this power, or want to exert it but can't exert it in their lifetime. But if someone can help guide me, it shouldn't be difficult to get the power of a master. Luffy thought for a while. Although his observation haki was awakened by various crises when he was surviving in the wild when he was a child, but there are still 9 snakes after all. In a place like the island, there are still other ways to guide this power. But I don't know how to do this. I can only tell you how I awakened, and the rest is up to you now. After a pause, Luffy continued, in addition to observation haki, there are 2 kinds of haki, namely armament haki and conqueror's haki. Like observation haki, armament haki can be awakened and improved through cultivation. Unlike observation haki's perception, armament haki is a kind of attack power that can improve people. And defensive power. And armament haki, which can improve attack power and defense power. What is that? Are you a master? Hearing that besides observation haki, there are armament haki and conqueror's haki, Zoro immediately wanted to know how far Luffy has achieved. To what extent? Nami on the side didn't speak, but just looked at Luffy with her beautiful eyes. This might be an opportunity for him to understand Luffy's strength. Luffy didn't answer right away, but stretched out his right hand, and then, in Zoro and Nami's curious eyes, there seemed to be an invisible force wrapped around the fist of the right hand, and then, Luffy's right fist of normal color, it was suddenly covered with a dark metallic sheen. Zoro, you can try to attack me with your knife. Maybe it will make you feel the power better. As for Nami, Luffy felt that with her body quality, armament haki should be unable to awaken, but Luffy does not need Nami master armament haki, as long as she can master observation haki, and observation haki has no requirements for physical fitness. Zoro didn't talk nonsense. He directly pulled out one of the 3 knives around his waist, and slashed at Luffy's blackened right hand in Nami's worried eyes. Although the two only met on the first day, Zoro had an inexplicable trust in Luffy, so even if Luffy asked him to cut him, Zoro would cut him without hesitation, because he believed that the other party would be fine. Chang Chang. A voice like a symphony of gold and iron came from where Zoro's swung knife touched Luffy's right hand. With the knife retracted, Zoro looked at Luffy's unharmed right hand in surprise, and once again felt the gap between himself and Luffy. Even if he didn't use much strength just now, Zoro felt that even if he swung the knife with all his strength, he probably wouldn't hurt Luffy at all. This made Zoro anxious and wanted the power of the master even more urgently. If he could have the power of the master, is he one step closer to being the world's #1 swordsman? On the other hand, Nami was so surprised that he didn't know what to say. If even a sword could not hurt Luffy, then coupled with the characteristics of Luffy rubber fruit, does it mean that Luffy is not afraid of any attack? In fact, both Nami and Zoro want to go wrong. Luffy's current haki volume and strength are not outrageously strong. Even if it is not haki, as long as the attack is strong enough, it can still cause damage to Luffy, but Zoro has not yet reached the level of cutting iron. It's really not a big threat to yourself. Then what about Conqueror's haki? What kind of power is that? Having seen armament haki and learned about observation haki, Zoro and Nami were also curious about another haki at this time. As for Conqueror's haki, it is an ability that cannot be acquired through cultivation. Only 1 in a million people has this power, and the rest are not to mention. Although Zoro may also have Conqueror's qualifications, but these will be discussed when he wakes up. Not too late. Zoro suddenly had the urge to draw a knife. Nami also gave Luffy a sullen look, and said half-hearted bad guy, asterisk. Should we just break in directly or? Nami glanced at the bar at the entrance of the bar and asked Luffy and Zoro nervously, mainly looking at Luffy. After all, Luffy was the one he was familiar with, although the two I've only seen it a few times. Zoro had already pressed his hand on the hilt of the knife, and even if he wasn't wearing his signature hood, the corners of the evil spirit's raised mouth revealed a beast-like aura. The door of the bar was open, and there was no one except for the tables and chairs slumped there. There were also many wine glasses scattered on the counter, but it seemed that the wine on the shelves had been removed. Everyone is on the roof. Don't be so nervous. Let's go directly to the roof. Even if we fight, it's fine. My observation haki doesn't sense any threat. Observation haki's ability to perceive the strength of the opponent is also as a result. Luffy was a little more disappointed with Buggy. To be honest, Luffy still hopes that there will be a strong fight with him now, so that he can understand his current strength. No matter how much people and animals are different, and his haki has been unable to break through, he wants to come. The reason for the lack of intense combat. If Buggy was hiding his strength, then maybe he could have a good fight, but based on the information Luffy observation haki sensed, the red-nosed man on the roof wearing the captain's costume and captain's hat was obviously not enough to pose a threat to him. Let's talk about it first. It's time to fight. The swordsman belongs to me. After seeing the strength of Luffy and the power of haki, Zoro looked forward to fighting, because Luffy said when he explained haki, fighting it is the easiest way to awaken and enhance haki. No problem, but with your strength, no one in the Buggy Pirates can pose any threat to you except Buggy. This is the truth. Don't look at the original book. Zoro seems to have a hard time fighting Cabbage, but that's Zoro. If you get stabbed by Buggy first, that's what happens. Now that Luffy is here, if he can let Buggy stab Zoro when he knows the plot, then Luffy should just buy a piece of tofu and kill him. Oh? So that Buggy is strong? Hearing Luffy's words, Zoro immediately noticed that Luffy was talking about other than Buggy, and there was a moving look on his face, obviously wanting to meet the clown Buggy for a while. It's not how strong the clown Buggy is, but he has demon fruit power, and his ability is exactly the nemesis of swordsmen. Luffy shook his head and explained to Zoro. Devil fruit. Are you the same as Luffy? Nami, who was looking around as if looking for something, turned around and asked back when Luffy said that the clown Buggy had eaten devil fruit. Devil fruit? Is there really such a thing? And you have eaten it? Hearing Luffy's words and Nami's rhetorical questions, a series of questions popped out of Zoro's mouth. Devil fruits have different abilities. It is impossible for two identical devil fruits to exist. I eat rubber fruit, which can stretch and deform at will like rubber, and has a great injury-free effect against non-sharp weapon attacks. Buggy eats chop fruit, which can break down the body into pieces, so it can be said that it is completely immune to cutting with sharp weapons, so unless a swordsman does not use a sword to attack, the cutting is completely ineffective for him. C2 seemingly interested, Luffy then explained, but demon fruit power can't swim, and if you fall into the sea, you will be completely powerless, so if I accidentally fall into the sea in the future, I have to rely on you to save me. In the end, Luffy gave Nami and Zoro another shot. Although Nami should know about it, Zoro didn't. Maybe he would need Zoro to save himself in the future. Since you invited me to be your companion, then of course I won't let you sink into the sea, but you have eaten devil fruit. I really don't know how strong you are now. Zoro stared closely at Luffy walking in. The figure in front had a flash of excitement in his eyes, but he quickly restrained it. This world is very big. Even me, I may already be strong in this East Blue, but when it comes to the Grand Line or even the New World, my strength is far from enough. It seems that I can feel Zoro's strong battle feeling. Luffy sighed with emotion as he pushed open the door of the rooftop. Who? Who is it? Hey! Who are you? Just after Luffy opened the door, the person behind the door seemed startled, but after seeing the faces of the three of Luffy, only the pirate minions who thought they were ordinary people yelled at the three of Luffy again. I heard that the Buggy pirates are having a banquet here. Ignoring the question from this little scoundrel, Luffy looked around and focused on the red-nosed man in the main seat not far away. Pirates are really happy to have a party, but Luffy is not here for the party. Luffy grabbed the doorman's collar, and with his right hand, threw him directly to the main table of the banquet under the frightened eyes of the minion. For these pirates who plunder civilians at will, Luffy will not be soft-hearted. As the minions screamed and flew to the dining table, the members of the Buggy pirates who were raving about stopped drinking and eating meat and looked at the source of the screams. What with the screams of the pirates thrown out, the table was smashed to the front, and then there was a series of bangs, and the table originally filled with food and wine was torn apart in an instant, sawdust flying, and food and drinks scattered all over the floor. The scene was a mess. Who is it? Stand up and dare to come to Uncle Buggy's territory. An angry roar sounded from the mouth of the red-nosed man who was sitting in the main seat. The pirates who were stunned by the sudden attack also pulled out their swords and looked at the three of Luffy at the gate. Who are you? Don't you know that this uncle is having a banquet here? After seeing the three of Luffy, the red-nosed man stood up from the chair and glared at Luffy who was walking in the front. Clown Buggy? Luffy said, looking directly at the red-nosed man. Now that you know it's Uncle Ben, you still dare to make trouble? Are you brave? Buggy's ridiculous face was full of anger at this time. Lord Buggy, what do you say? Do you want to arrest them? I think there's a pretty girl there, hee hee. As soon as Buggy finished speaking, there was a little scoundrel under him, noticing the girl next to Luffy. After Nami, her eyes lit up, and she asked Buggy with a wicked smile. I don't know whether to live or die. Luffy's eyes froze, his sharp eyes swept towards the open-mouthed scoundrel, and the invisible momentum pressed towards him like a tide. Asterisk. As Luffy's icy words fell, the pirate minion who had lustful eyes and an evil smile on his face froze, and then rolled his eyes. Under the puzzled gazes of other pirates around, his body softened and he went straight. Fell to the ground. Hey. Hey. What's the matter with you? Did you just drink too much? Haha. Why did you pass out? You are too useless. Facing this sudden change, those little guys of the Buggy pirates, the minions, only thought that the fallen brother had drunk too much, and laughed, completely unaware of what happened. This is Conqueror's Hockey. As a former crew member of the Roger Pirates, even if it was just a trainee crew, Buggy naturally had seen Conqueror's Hockey, and the other party was able to control Conqueror's Hockey to stun only one person, which made Buggy that the already angry face became even more difficult to look at. Who the hell are you guy? Boss Buggy. What's wrong? Is there anything special about the other party? At this time, a man riding a unicycle and wrapped in a scarf who was standing beside Buggy asked with some doubts when he saw Buggy's ugly face. Shut up, you idiots. Without answering the question from his chief of staff, Buggy yelled at his subordinates who were still mocking his brother. With Buggy's roar, the originally noisy scene quieted down for a moment. Those scoundrels look at me and I look at you. I don't understand why my captain is so angry all of a sudden. Not only did Buggy stare at Luffy, even Zoro and Nami looked at Luffy as soon as the minion fell to the ground. Although they didn't see Luffy's shot, they intuitively told them that this was what Luffy did. After all, Luffy glared at the other party with a cold gaze just after the ruffian made a rude remark, and it seemed that it was this look that made the ruffian faint. As for Buggy's murmur just now, the two of them did hear clearly, this is Conqueror's Hockey? The two still don't understand how Luffy did it. Could it be that the so-called Conqueror's Hockey is a dream that stuns people through his eyes? But Nami didn't care what Conqueror's Hockey was. She only knew that Luffy shot because that minion had bad thoughts about her, which made Nami a little happy. It seemed that Luffy still cared about her. Zoro is more concerned about whether Luffy has any strength that has not been revealed. Today, since he was rescued by Luffy, what Luffy showed completely broke Zoro's original worldview. Zoro was born for the first time. Weak thoughts, but this also strengthened his decision to follow Luffy. Only by following such a person, he may have the opportunity to challenge the throne of the world's #1 swordsman. For a time, Zoro's burning ambition was blazing. Combustion. Monkey D. Luffy, this is my name. Speaking of which, I heard Shanks mention you. As Shanks' former partner, I thought you were at least a big pirate with a bounty of over 100 million, but I didn't expect you to be just a red-nosed clown who is dominating in East Blue. Holding the straw hat above his head, Luffy didn't pay attention to Nami and Zoro's gaze, but looked at Buggy calmly and said, I'll tell you why your damn straw hat looks so familiar. So you know that bastard from Shanks, but that bastard actually gave you his most precious hat. It seems that you are not an ordinary kid. Luffy held out his hand. At that time, Buggy, who had been staring at Luffy, noticed the straw hat on Luffy's head for the first time, and nodded after hearing Luffy's words, but soon became angry again. Who are you calling a red nose, smelly kid? Don't think it's amazing to know Conqueror's hockey. You are as annoying as that guy from Shanks. Stop talking nonsense. I'm not looking for you for anything else. Hand over the nautical chart to the Grand Line. How about we leave immediately? Luffy was too lazy to talk nonsense with him, and directly stated his purpose, although he could do it directly, but I don't know if Buggy has a map with him, and it's not a waste of time when he beats people up and can't find the map. You're too arrogant. You asked us to hand over the map and we handed it over. Are you looking down on our Buggy pirates too much? The man with long hair said viciously to Luffy, and the lion under his crotch also roared at the three of Luffy at the same time, as if he was about to pounce immediately. Shut up, Mochi. Buggy drank the man riding the lion immediately, then looked at Luffy fiercely and said, Little devil, you may be very strong, but this uncle is not a vegetarian. The nautical chart can be here, but shouldn't you also leave something in exchange? It doesn't seem to be worth talking about. If you were ordinary people, I can still make deals with you. Since you are pirates, isn't plundering and being plundered reasonable? But pirates, especially those who burn, kill and loot, Luffy will not reason with each other. Don't look at the original Buggy may be a funny character, but a funny character is not a good person. It's really arrogant, stinky brat, but forget it. This time even if this uncle is unlucky, I'll give you the nautical chart. Little ones, bring that idiot. Let's go. Buggy gave Luffy a gloomy look, and then from his chest he took out a blueprint rolled into a barrel from his clothes and threw it at Luffy. Boss Buggy. Seeing that the usually arrogant boss actually confessed this time, the little guys below looked at Buggy in disbelief. Even the deputy captain Mochi and the chief of staff Cabbage looked at him in disbelief. What are you looking at? Why don't you go? Buggy could do nothing about the confusion of his subordinates. Don't look at the number of people on his side, but in front of Conqueror's hockey, even if the number of these younger brothers increased tenfold and 100 times, they would only be staring at the other party. You may be able to deal with each other twice, but it doesn't make any sense. Besides, the other party only wants the nautical chart, not his own treasure, so there is no need for him to confront the other party head-on. As for the nautical chart, he will give it if he gives it. Well, I met them at sea later, so I had to give each other 2 special buggy bombs to try. After taking the nautical chart, Luffy threw it to Nami without looking at it. As long as Buggy wasn't stupid, he wouldn't give Zhang a fake nautical chart, otherwise his previous compromise would be meaningless. Luffy didn't stop Buggy's gang from evacuating either. This time, it's a matter of putting the opponent on Shanks' face. Next time we meet, this pirate Luffy won't let go. When ordinary people suffer, Luffy can only say that he can't help, and he just needs to do what he thinks. Asterisk. They just left. Watching the younger brothers carry the fainted minions on their backs and leave with Buggy without looking back, Zoro's hand that had been holding the handle of the knife didn't know whether to put it down or not. Buggy is not an ordinary pirate. Although his strength does not seem to be very good, his knowledge is indeed top-notch. However, with his character, this time he has shrunk in our hands, and he will probably shoot at us next time we meet again. For Zoro's confusion, Luffy explained a little. Unlike Zoro, although I, the traveler, could not wait for the end of One Piece, at least I still understand the previous plot of Wano Kuni. Although Buggy seemed to be fearless when he was on the Roger ship, even if he encountered the Whitebeard pirates. Going up to the hard bar, but looking at his performance after the top, it is obvious that after he set sail, Buggy should be a lot more cautious. Otherwise he would not have been hanging out in East Blue for so many years, and now when I see Luffy, I will meet Conqueror's hockey and can be perfect after taking control. Naturally there will be no idea of frontal conflict, but I don't know if there will be any small tricks behind it. But Luffy doesn't care. Let's not say that the sea is so big, is there any chance to meet the opponent again? Even if he does, with Luffy's strength, he can beat the opponent, unless he grows faster than himself, but is this possible? If it could grow so fast, Buggy would not be what it is now after so many years. As for attacking Nami and others, unless Luffy and Nami are separated, there is no way this could happen with Luffy's observation hockey. Now that the nautical chart is in hand, let's find a village for another ship. It is obviously unrealistic for this broken ship to enter the Grand Line. Luffy turned his head and looked at the person who had opened the nautical chart and studied there. Nami said. The current situation in this orange town is obviously impossible for Luffy to switch to the ship, so it is estimated that they have to follow the original book, but Luffy does not plan to change the route. In the case of a foresighted plot advantage, who knows how to change the route? What will happen? The next village is Shirobu village, which is not too far from here. At the speed of a boat, it should be able to arrive before dark, Nami replied, pointing to a spot on the nautical chart. If that's the case, let's go. The town. Mayor, the people from the Buggy pirates seem to have left. The man who went out to check the situation in the back of the Orange Town ran back out of breath and shouted to the villagers who gathered here to hide. The originally lifeless camp suddenly burst into commotion, and several men with improvised weapons ran out of it and surrounded the man who had just returned. What you said is true. Are you sure you read it right? The uncle wearing glasses asked as he grabbed the man's shoulder. I'm sure I read it right. There is also a small boat I don't know. It also left not long after the Buggy pirates left. I don't know if there is any relationship between them. I think that before the Buggy pirates left, there was the pirates were carried away by Buggy's subordinates. The man nodded vigorously, indicating that he was not mistaken, and said the abnormality he saw. Then have you seen the person in that boat? Uncle I, the mayor of Orange Town, guessed that the person in that boat might have driven the Buggy pirates away, but there was only one person in the Buggy pirates. It was carried away, and there is some uncertainty. Hold. I'm sorry, Mayor, I was in a hurry to get back and didn't see it clearly, but I saw there were 3 of them, and one of them was wearing a straw hat. Forget it. Anyway, let's go back to the town and take a look. After 2 days and we're sure that the Buggy pirates won't come back, we'll inform everyone to move back. Take the few people who just came out together and head back to Orange Town. Navigation on this sea is really boring and leisurely. Luffy sighed a little while paddling, basking in the sun, feeling the salty smell brought by the sea breeze. At that time, I should have done it directly, and my knife is almost rusted now. Zoro had thought about Luffy's release of Buggy's gang several times along the way. After learning about some of Luffy's strength, Zoro was eager to want to improve yourself by fighting. What's wrong? What if I get caught by them when I move my hands? Do you still expect me, a weak woman, to have any fighting power? And aren't you also exercising yourself by rowing? Nami retorted. So why are the 2 of us rowing and you are resting there? Zoro could only pouted annoyed at Nami's sudden speech, but seeing Nami's laid-back face, he was not at all angry. Come on, turn into a Fang's face and roar in an instant. I want to study this nautical chart to point you in the right direction, or I'll let you, a lunatic, look at the nautical chart. Ignoring Zoro's roar, Nami stretched his tongue. The slender figure that was even more pronounced because of the stretched arms made Luffy, who just turned around, feast his eyes. Do you want to fight this woman? Zoro got even more angry when he heard the word Lukai. He almost had the urge to draw his knife and turn his head to chop at Nami, but his subordinates did not stop. The speed of the paddling made Luffy have to speed up to prevent the boat from veering off course. I ignored Zoro, noticed that Luffy was staring at his Nami, without any shy look. Instead he winked at Luffy, and then continued to blow the sea breeze leisurely. The 2 rowed for an unknown time, but the sky was still bright, and it should be a while before it got dark. A shadow of land appeared in Luffy's field of vision. Nami, is that Shirobu village? Let's see. Hearing Luffy's culture, Nami took a look at the nautical chart, and then compared the island in the distance. It's not a village of Xylab, it's an uninhabited island. How about it? Uninhabited island? Oh, it must be the treasure island where the monster in the box is located. Luffy remembered, after all, it has been 17 years. Although I remember the general plot, I can't remember some details. Luffy was a little impressed that there were some strange animals on the island, and there was a batch of empty treasure chests, and the rest seemed to be nothing to worry about. If so, is it necessary to go to the island? After thinking for a while, Luffy decided to go up and have a look. Anyway, everyone came here. Depending on the size of the island, it wouldn't take much time to go up and take a look around. Thinking of this, Luffy nodded, then go up and have a look. Maybe there will be some unexpected gains, asterisk. It turns out that Luffy thinks too much, except for the strange uncle who is connected with the box. There are only a group of strange animals on the uninhabited island. But this is normal. After all, Zhenbao Island is not an isolated island. On the contrary, Zhenbao Island's reputation is quite famous in East Blue. After so many years, I don't know how many treasure hunters have logged into this unmanned island. The island, even if the island really had treasures before, was discovered and taken away many years ago. Originally, Nami was quite excited when he heard that there might be treasures on this island. After leaving the indifferent Zoro to sleep on the boat, he went to the island with Luffy, but after Luffy opened the empty boxes, Nami had no interest at all. Look like. However, Luffy is still very curious about how people in the pirate world can grow together with the treasure chest, which is too strange, not to mention that such a big person can't hold a wooden box, even if it falls from a slightly higher place. Did you break the box? And this uncle named Carmen actually grew up with the box after 20 years. After letting go of the uncle's knot, Luffy and Nami returned to the shore where the boat was. Because it was a little late, according to Nami, it was difficult to tell the direction at night, so I was going to call Zoro down. Today spend the night in the woods and leave tomorrow at dawn. After a night of silence, the three of Luffy said goodbye to Carmen, the uncle of the treasure box, early the next day, and set off towards Xylab village in the morning light. I didn't expect to encounter a pirate ship here. Look at the mark on the pirate flag, is it the Black Cat Pirates? That's a coincidence. The three of Luffy could already see the pirates in Shirab village. At that time, a pirate ship with a pirate flag appeared in the sight of the three of Luffy. Luffy is still a little impressed with this pirate flag. After all, there are only a few pirate groups in the original East Blue chapter. Luffy basically remembers the flags that have appeared. Besides, this is Shirab village, and Luffy remembers it all at once. Which pirate group is this? Black Cat Pirates. It is said that their previous captain, Bai Ji Klo, was caught and executed 3 years ago. What, is there still without the pirates? As for the Black Cat Pirates, since childhood naturally, Zoro and Nami who grew up in East Blue have heard of it. Oh. That's right, and the one who caught Crow was the Marine Colonel named Monka that we killed before. Oh, I heard that he became Colonel Marine because he captured Crow. The twisted Luffy let out a sneer. Oh. Listening to your tone, there seems to be something wrong? Zoro asked curiously, noticing Luffy's sneer. Nami on the side also looked at Luffy. She always felt that Luffy seemed to know a lot of things that others didn't know, just like the Buggy pirates she met before, and the Shanks mentioned by Luffy made Nami a little familiar. But I just can't remember where I heard it. Do you really think that with the strength and arrogant character that Monka showed before, you can catch Chloe, who has the title of 100 Ways? And it was said that he was the only one in Marine who survived. Luffy looked at Zoro asked back. Although Nami hasn't seen Monka before, Zoro has. Not to mention how strong that guy is, but with the kind of character he shows, such a person really doesn't seem to be able to deal with Chloe's high level. A person with an IQ, and he was the only one in Marine who survived at that time, and he managed to catch Crow. Now that he thinks about it, it is indeed full of suspicion. That means hundreds of crows may still be alive. On the opposite side is the ship of the Black Cat Pirates. Just go up and ask, and you will know everything. It just so happens that we can give up this small ship, I will take you up, and the pirates above will be handed over to you, Zoro. Luffy smiled slightly when he looked at the pirate ship not far away that seemed to have found himself and others and wanted to come over. It happened that I didn't have a boat. Even if I didn't get going merry this time, I wanted to use this boat to go to the Grand Line. It may be a pity that the ship spirit of the Merry is a bit unfortunate. Hey, Captain Zangao, there's a small boat ahead. How about you? Do you want to grab him before going to Shirobu village? On the Black Cat Pirates, a man who looked like a younger brother found the boat that the three of Luffy were on, and suggested to a man in a dress hat and strange glasses. Well, that's okay. There are still a few days before the date set by Captain Crow, so I won't be in a hurry. The current captain of the Black Cat Pirates, that is, Master Zangao of Hypnosis, after listening to his brother's suggestion after thinking about it, I agreed. Zan. Captain Zangao, from that boat. The boat stretched out. A very long arm. Just as Zangao agreed and the boat changed direction, another younger brother seemed to pay attention what happened, he ran over in a panic. At this moment, the three of Luffy who were sitting on the boat, in a strange posture, grabbed the railing of the Black Cat pirate ship with Luffy's outstretched arms and flew over. Why is it strange? Mainly, Luffy stretched his right hand to pull the railing, his left hand was holding Zoro's collar, and Nami was hugging Luffy's waist tightly, and the hand that hugged Luffy was also carrying a bag of things, which should be the previous treasure exchange. Bailey. At this time, Zoro, who was being held up by Luffy's collar, was waving his limbs angrily, and at the same time, he kept shouting bastards and the like, and the three people in the air were constantly swaying left and right. The right hand has been holding the railing of the Black Cat pirate ship, and a few people may fall into the sea. Compared to Zoro's anger, Nami seemed quite comfortable, even though the three of them kept shaking because of Zoro's relationship, but in addition to holding Luffy's hand harder and her pretty face closer to Luffy's chest, the corners of her mouth were still hanging, with a faint smile. Attention, I'm going to land. Seeing that he had appeared above the Black Cat pirate ship, Luffy first retracted his hand holding the railing, and at the same time threw the Zoro in his left hand onto the Black Cat pirate ship, and then his right hand stretching down, passing through the bend of Nami's legs, holding Nami's back with his left hand. After Luffy fixed Nami's body, Nami also took advantage of the situation to put his hands from Luffy's waist to Luffy's neck. Bang! Luffy landed on his feet and stabilized his body, while Nami was hugged by Luffy in a princess hug. Even if he had already boarded the deck of the Black Cat pirate ship, he had no intention of coming down. Different from the smooth login of Luffy and Nami, after being thrown by Luffy, Zoro could only curl up as much as possible because of his inability to balance his body in the air. After landing, he rolled a few times before jumping up suddenly. Asterisk. Fortunately, the hat didn't fall off. Otherwise I'd have to trouble Zoro to help me get it back. Putting Nami down, Luffy ignored the stunned pirates around him, and seemed to say to himself. Although some are reluctant to feel the warm touch of beauty in the arms, but it will be a long time to come to Japan. Nami, who was put down by Luffy, was a little nostalgic for Luffy's arms for a while, but after seeing the pirates surrounded by pirates, he hid behind Luffy in fright, and then heaved a sigh of relief. Bastard, are you trying to kill me? Why don't you just throw me and that woman? Zoro, who jumped up from the ground, saw that Nami was safe and sound, and his anger surged up in an instant. Ah, who made it a girl? What's wrong with Zoro being thrown twice as a man? Nami, who was hiding behind Luffy, looked at Zoro, who was covered in dust and had a troubled face, and answered before Luffy spoke. His beautiful eyes narrowed into a slit. You damn it. Chong, before Zoro could finish speaking, a thin figure attacked from behind Zoro. With the sound of the symphony of gold and iron, Zoro pulled out one of the 3 knives around his waist before the attack was about to arrive, and turned around to block the unexpected claw. Sneak attack while others are talking is nothing. Good habits. After turning around to see who had attacked him, a gloomy voice came from the corner of Zoro's slightly hideous mouth. I'm really sorry, but it's not a good habit for your excellency to suddenly break into someone else's boat, right? The thin catman didn't speak, and the one who spoke was the captain of the hypnosis division in a dress. Clang clang, as Zanko's words fell, the pirate brothers who had recovered from the sudden shock all drew their weapons, and looked at the 3 of Luffy with evil smiles on the corners of their mouths. There is no need for etiquette for pirates who have done all their bad deeds. Luffy glanced at the pirates who were sharpening their knives, and then stretched out his hands suddenly. As Luffy swung his hands, the pirates who surrounded Luffy and the 3 of them had no time to let out an "ah" scream, and all flew backwards into the sea. The rest of the Catmen brothers will be handed over to you, Zoro. Be careful not to let the weapon slip away. After reminding Zoro, Luffy looked at Zangao who had not recovered. As for you, just stand still, and when they're done fighting, there's still something to ask you. You are demon fruit power. The legend is actually true. There is actually a devil fruit. It was only reported by the younger brother before, but now he saw Luffy's casually stretched arm, and Zangao stumbled and fell. Sat on the deck. As expected, devil fruit is a legend in East Blue, and almost no one has seen it. Even in the quite famous Black Cat pirates in East Blue, apart from the former Captain Crow, even the current Captain Zangao only regards devil fruit as a legend. That's it. Since the captain has explained it, let me deal with you. Zoro directly pulled out the other 2 knives around his waist. The left hand that was originally empty. 3 swords, it's actually Roronoa Zoro, a pirate hunter known as Warcraft, but when you meet our cat brothers, no matter whether you are a pirate hunter or what, you will only end up being killed by us. Thin Catman Sam seeing the posture of Zoro using the 3 swords, he recognized Zoro at once, but his tone was still arrogant. Captain Zangao was actually frightened by others. What a shame. Butch the fat catman looked at his frightened captain. How dare you say it? Then you can pick it up. Zoro raised his hands, and put the 2 knives in his hands with the tips facing down and the hilt facing up on his back to the left. The words Kue Dao and Dao Yi are in front of the 2 swords. 3 swords, Tiger Hunt. Coming up is a big move. After all, the 3 of them have to ride on this ship. If the fighting time is too long, the ship may be damaged. It is better to fight quickly. Thinking of this, Zoro rushed forward and slashed at the skinny cat Sam 3 times at an extremely fast speed. Swish, the sound of the blade piercing the body sounded, and the skinny cat Sam, who was ready to go, flew out with blood splashing. It's you next. Zoro, who appeared in the position of the skinny catman Sam, pointed the blade of both hands to one side, turned his head slightly, and drove the big knife in his mouth to swipe a sharp edge, and his sharp eyes swept towards the fat catman. The location of Borges. Sam. You bastard, I'm going to kill you. Seeing his brother being slashed to death by the other party, Fat Catman Bougi's eyes spit fire, and his fat body jumped high and slammed towards Zoro's smash the direction. 3 swords, Ghost Slash. The daggers in both hands were quickly crossed in front of his chest. Looking at the fat figure that was about to fall, Zoro squatted slightly with his legs, and before Boji's body reached, he kicked his feet hard. He Daoyi word suddenly cut out. The 2 figures crossed, and 3 arrows of blood spurted out of Bougi's fat body, and fell heavily on the deck. The force of the fall was completely cut off by Zoro, and Buzzy, who had only his own gravity, just smashed the deck slightly. Zoro lightly fell from the air, inserting the two knives into the scabbard respectively, and then took off the word hedao in his mouth and put it in the scabbard. It's so strong. Nami, who had been hiding behind Luffy, was the first time he saw Zoro make a move. With just 2 moves, the 2 opponents who didn't look weak were directly dealt with. He covered his mouth with his hands for a while, and his beautiful eyes were full of eyes. Surprise. You actually defeated the cat people with 2 strokes, you. Zhang Gao, who had been sitting down since just now, saw that the 2 people on the boat, who were second only to the original captain, were killed by others with 2 strokes. For a while, it was difficult to accept. I heard that powerful swordsmen can cut flying slashes and cut steel easily, but I don't know if you have reached that point, Zoro. Here is what Luffy asked, but he just wanted Zoro to say so. Get in touch with the realm of Zon Tai early. Although the plot of the original book looks bloody, Luffy doesn't want his partner to be hurt all the time. Cut off the steel. Hearing Luffy's words, Zoro was stunned for a moment. What the master once said came to his mind at this moment. Cut off what you want to cut, and cut off what you don't want to cut. It seems that he is still far away. At present, I can't slash steel, nor can I swing flying slashes. Even Luffy, who is not a swordsman, knows these things, but he, who aims to be the world's #1 swordsman, doesn't know. It seems that his cultivation it's not enough. Whether it is hockey or swordsmanship, my own training is far from enough. Asterisk. How could such a thing happen? Nami was very surprised when he learned what happened that year from Zhang Gao's mouth. Not only Nami was surprised, but even Luffy, who knew the plot, was surprised. Can Zango's hypnosis technique last for so long without failing? Or can it be made permanent? If so, Zhang Gao may still be a talent. Luffy touched his chin and directly asked his question. My ability can't always take effect. Even if the Marine had been beaten by Captain Crow and was unconscious and weak, hypnosis was also very successful. But hypnosis is hypnosis. It is impossible to change a person's memory forever. At least I can't do it. Zhang Gao, who was beaten, had a bruised nose and a swollen face at this time. Hearing Luffy's question, he answered carefully while steering the rudder. Meaning that Monka has long since regained consciousness, but he didn't mean to report it at all? Zoro asked with his hands behind his head, leaning against the plank of the boat, and opened his eyes when he heard Zango's explanation. It should be like this. Captain Crow also waited for a while and saw no movement from Marine before starting his plan. Zhang Gao, who was beaten, had long since revealed Crow's plan. Jing, at this time, it is natural that there is no need to cover up. It seems that she is reluctant to bear the power in her hands. What a disgusting Marine. For Nami, who was trapped by Colonel Mouse, the appearance of a Marine like Colonel Monka is simply a shame for Belmere, who is also Marine. Thinking of Belmere, Nami's eyes dimmed, and for a while he was a little depressed. Seemingly aware of Nami's loss, Luffy patted Nami's shoulder without saying anything. Feeling Luffy's concern, Nami picked up her mood and gave Luffy a bright smile. Just when the few people stopped talking and the ship was slightly silent, there was finally a trace of the island not far away. Sorobu village is coming soon. Let's get off the boat. After seeing the island, Luffy said to Nami and Zoro, and at the same time glanced at Zangao who was still sailing. As for you, watch the boat right here. Well, if you are lucky and we get another ship, you can leave on your own. Otherwise, keep sailing for us. Don't act rashly. Your every move is under the perception of my observation hockey. If there is any bad move, I don't mind throwing you directly into the sea. Hearing Luffy's threat, Zango trembled. Although he didn't know what Luffy was talking about observation hockey, it must be some kind of surveillance. After seeing the strength of Luffy and Zoro, Zango stopped resisting. The idea of, not to mention that he is just watching the boat or sailing, at least for now, his life is not in danger. Thinking of this, Zangao nodded quickly and continued to steer the ship to move straight towards the island. Just when the 3 of Luffy got off the boat and walked towards Shi Luobu village, there was a lot of movement from the high slope not far away, and at the same time, a slightly nervous young voice sounded, "Hey, you seize." The thieves stop advancing immediately. This is the territory of the great pirate captain Usopp. If you continue to advance, my 80 million men will attack. As the boy with a long nose jumped out from behind the bushes in brown clothes, a lot of flags appeared around and sank among the bushes. Even if you tell a lie, at least make it a little bit like. You live in such a big island with 80 million people. Nami was speechless. How naive the other party was. What? Dismantled? Dismantled? Hearing Nami's words, Usopp, who was already nervous, suddenly trembled in his legs, and his voice was slightly deformed. Okay, we're not pirates yet, and we don't do anything to you. We just want to come here to buy a boat. For Usopp, Luffy was a little tangled, whether to invite him to the boat or not. After Luffy explained the purpose of his visit, Usopp's trembling body and deformed voice returned to normal, and he enthusiastically brought the three of Luffy to a restaurant in the village, not embarrassed at all because the previous deception was exposed. If you want to talk about boats, this village is there, right? The richest family in the entire Zailuobu village, but the housekeeper there is a bit annoying. If you want to buy a boat, the housekeeper will not necessarily pay attention to you. At the dinner table, Usopp seemed cheerful about a wealthy family, but less so when it came to a housekeeper. What's wrong with that housekeeper? Nami put his chin in one hand, still a little surprised that someone like Usopp would obviously hate someone. That housekeeper should be the former captain of the Black Cat Pirates, the hundreds of clues, who should have been executed. Presumably this wealthy family in Shirobu village is his target. Luffy took Nami's question. The answer is directly stated. Huh. Could it be that the plan that Zango said was? I didn't think of it at first, but Luffy said it all, so obviously the plan I heard from Zango before and the implementer of the plan was this person. What are you talking about? What pirates planned? Although Chloe makes me feel uncomfortable, but other people in the village trust him quite a bit. How could he be a pirate? I was told by Luffy and Nami. Usopp in the fog was a little confused, but it was about Miss Kaya, so Usopp had to ask clearly. Luffy looked at Usopp with interest. Maybe this time he could make up his mind whether to invite him. We are saying that the butler is the captain of the Black Cat Pirates who should have been executed 3 years ago, hundreds of clues, and the reason why he came here to be the housekeeper is for the family's property. It seems that we are here. It's a very unfortunate coincidence. As far as we know, that guy might be ready to do it, eh? Luffy said calmly, with some kind of bewitching in his tone. How could it be? If that's the case, then Kaya. Damn, you guys are eating here now. I have something to go out. Hearing Luffy's words, he didn't doubt whether what Luffy said was true. Usopp said goodbye and then he grabbed his purse and left in a hurry. Regardless of whether what Luffy said was true or not, Usopp himself felt that the housekeeper was wrong from a long time ago, but at that time Usopp only thought that it was because he was not likable, but the other party was trusted by others, and he was therefore jealous of him. But now, Luffy's words made Usopp's heart tighten. Thinking of the gentle lady, Usopp clenched his fists. Don't let it happen, Kaya. Asterisk.